Santie, thank you so much for joining us on CAB Talk today. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. To begin with, just tell us about the role you play within the NDMA.
Thanks for having me. The NDMA is a non-profit organization, and our main core objective is to help over-indebted people.
Okay.
So my role in the NDMA is to look after the mediation teams, to make sure that we help as many people as possible. And then the other part of my role is to look at a new business and have a look and see whether there's new products that we need, that there's a need for, that we can incorporate.
I'm assuming that this is a very busy time for you right now because there are a lot of consumers that are over-indebted.
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about the mediation process.
Okay, it is a very busy time always. There's always over-indebted people.
Yeah.
The mediation process consists out of a few steps, and I'll just quickly give you the highlight
Sure.
steps. We do initial assessment where we look at the income and expenditure of a consumer, and we give them back that initial assessment.
Yes.
We then do a final assessment where we look for possible solutions for the individual's specific situation. These solutions can be any range from actual just payment negotiations up to more serious remedies which could include legal remedies. After we've done the final assessment, we go over into action. Then we start negotiating and then implementing the new plan. And then the last bit of the process is that we hold the consumer's hand through the process and then afterwards as well. Because it's also no good just helping whilst the stress is there. It's that time afterwards that's also important.
So what's coming through from you is that there is a human side to approaching dealing with an over-indebted situation, a consumer that finds himself over-indebted. What are the psychological, what kind of impact psychologically does it have on a consumer when he finds himself in this difficult position?
It has a huge impact. Some consumers react by becoming embarrassed, hiding away, not dealing with things, becoming really depressed. And as you can imagine, that affects their whole family and all their relationships. Other consumers become addictive to substances because it's a way of hiding away. And same ramifications on family is tremendous.
Also, it's an embarrassment. They feel embarrassed that they're in that situation.
They do, and we find that in a lot of instances the embarrassment causes consumers not to share the whole truth with their partners or with the people that they live with. So it's the embarrassment of the financial situation, and then I still have to hide things away.
And we know that money matters creates conflict in relationships
It does.
as well.
It does. A lot of conflict within your own immediate family, and then with family members if they are relying on you for input or money for their households. So it has a huge impact.
How do you rehabilitate somebody that is over-indebted?
I think the first step is for the person to understand how they got there. And we don't judge people, but we need to understand how we got there. Is it a decision I made? Is it something that happened in my life? So once we've established that, the plan of action is to see that we don't repeat it if it's a bad decision we made, and if it's a life happening, to make provision for it.
Do you find that it's also the fault of the case of reckless lending on the fault of credit providers?
There are some reckless lending, but I think we need to look at it in conjunction with providing information. There's a responsibility on a credit provider not to lend reckless, but there's a responsibility on the consumer to give the correct information. And we find in a lot of instances that there's not full disclosure. With other words, a lot of the expenses, and specifically below the line lending, machinises and loan sharks and that kind of thing, is not put on your income and expenditure, and it's understated. With other words, it's a two-edged sword.
And then also there's this abuse of the garnishee system taking place in South Africa. Are we making progress when it comes to addressing this abuse?
Yeah, there's two things that's happening in the garnishee space. There's illegal garnishee orders, with other words, orders that haven't gone to court but it looks like they have, and that should definitely stop. That should not be allowed. And then the other side of it is legal orders, but the affordability isn't there. So despite the fact that it's gone through the process, the person can't afford it. And in those instances, what we recommend is to do the income and expenditure and then take it back to court to say, this is the total portfolio of the individual, and then get an order for a reduced amount.